Hi everyone, welcome to WW Designs. My name is Nikki, and today we are going to finish off our cute little chunky journal that started life as a masterboard. If you haven't already watched this video, it's the last one I posted, and it might be worth a watch before you watch all the decorating bit. On the mat there, I have all the pieces I have cut out from what was left of the masterboard, and we are going to decorate with them later. But firstly, just a quick couple of things I want to do to this cover. You, of course, don't have to do anything like this, but I just decided I needed a little bit of something. So I grabbed a sponge, my favourite paint, or gold paint, Jo Sonia Rich Gold, and my plate that's covered in years of fabulous acrylic paint work. And I've just stenciled 4 flowers on the cover, couple on the back. And then my next dilemma was, when I cut this cover, I wanted that flower on the right hand side that's been glued down on top of everything to be the sort of the center eyepiece of this, because I didn't want to do a fancy cover and scare everybody off, because this is sort of, meant to be a relatively simple project. But it annoyed me that the flower wasn't standing out, and I can't ink the edge because it's already been glued down. So I grabbed some cardstock that looks like timber, and I've cut myself 4 pieces. I've mitered the corners in the hope that I can create a little frame around this flower so that it actually stands out. I thought that might be the easiest way to fix this, and I didn't have a ready-made one in my stash, so I had to have a go at doing it myself. And now we're going to put the last piece on, and it works. It's almost perfect. There's a tiny little bit of overhang, but you know what? This is a junk journal. It's okay. I won't tell anybody if you don't. Voila, we now have a little frame, and I can see my flower. Then the next thing I'm going to do before we do anything else inside, I'm going to show you a very simple way of creating a pretty closure for a junk journal. And it's simply using a brad, but there's just a couple of little tips I want to show you to make it easy for you to do. First of all, I'm using a ruler to mark the halfway mark because I want my brad to be in the middle. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my craft knife and I'm going to start stabbing the cover, but very gently. You don't want to try and do this all in one go and accidentally make a hole that is too big. It has to be just wide enough to feed the arms of the brad through. So I'm just making sure there's not a journal page under there, of course. So just gently, do it a few times, gently, slowly. If you get carried away and you have a really sharp craft knife, you may very well cut right through the edge, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm just folding down now the arms of the brad, which we're going to feed through the little hole that I have made. And I forgot that it's easier if you actually grab the brad with a pair of tweezers. It holds the 2 arms together, and then they're less likely to split apart as you're trying to feed them through. Mine is quite a tight hole, and that's exactly what I wanted. That way it's not doing any damage that we don't want done. Now, you'll see I'm adding 2 little scraps of cardboard underneath the brad. The reason being, when it's secured, I want to have space to actually wrap the twine around that I intend to use. So by using the cardboard, you create some space. Now, I'm just gently folding down the arms, and I realise that I want to add a little bit of glue under the arms. Now, just FYI, the glue I'm using is Helmer's Tiger Grip. It is my favourite. It does glue down metal. So I'm just making sure this is nice and solid and it's not going to come undone. And checking that my butterfly is the correct way up. I'd be so mad if I'd done it and my poor little butterfly was upside down. Then I've just grabbed a little scrap of cardstock, which I realise I just had to make a tiny bit smaller. I'm giving it a really good coat of glue, and then I'm going to place this over the top of the brads. So this is sealing the brad arms in place, and it's also creating protection so that you'll see in a minute we're going to add a pocket over this to hide it. But if you add ephemera and you've got a rough metal arm there, you may tear something. So That's why we're making it as strong as possible, but also practical. And can you see I've got some nice space there now. So I just make sure you press down on this cardstock a few times, just make sure it's all nice and solid. And the next thing we're going to do is make our very first piece of ephemera from our masterboard, and this is a pocket that I have cut out for the front, and I have cut it large enough to make sure that it will cover that piece of pink. Now, of course, you could completely cover the inside of your journal. Cover if you want. Do the brad bit first and then add maybe some pretty paper or fabric, whatever you like, but attach the brad first. That way it's hidden underneath everything. So you'll see where I had my thumb. That's where I hold my pockets where I do not want to apply glue, so that you don't accidentally add glue where you don't want it to be. I have done that before and it can be really frustrating. But in this case, you can see the pink's gone. There's a tiny lump there, but it's no big deal. And now we're moving on to our second piece, and this is going to be a belly band. And as you can see, I didn't think about this when I chose this masterboard as my cover, but there's a lot of really dark papers used, which are very attractive, but I noticed my ephemera just disappeared on the really dark bits. So I have 3 really pretty butterflies I want to put on this belly band, and what I've done underneath there, I found this paper flag in my stash that I die cut, goodness knows when, but it's a perfect way to help add some contrast and just tone down excess black, because otherwise these butterflies, because like this one being purple, you could barely see it on that dark paper. So nothing like a piece of paper scrap to solve all the problems of the junk journal world. And you'll notice I'm just gluing them down in the centres. I don't mind if the wings can flap around a bit, not that they will, but it's quite a cute look and it's very easy to do. 2 of those are like a plastic film stuff, and the other one is just a cardstock one, but I thought they looked very cute. Then to add your belly band to a journal page, just add a little bit of glue at the top and the bottom. Try to keep it as close to the edge as possible, especially when you're working in a tiny journal, because otherwise your tuck spot, if you have too much glue further down, you're making your tuck spot very small. So I always just try and add just a little bit of glue top and bottom. Line it up wherever you want it. Doesn't have to be central. You can have it to the left or the right if you prefer. I'm just adding this one sort of in the middle and pressing down well. And that's it. That one's done. All good to go. Now, the next piece we're going to do is, this just was a rectangle. I've cut a little bit of an arrow shape in it just for fun. We're adding some glue just along the top, and then we're going to glue this down at the top of a journal page, and this is called a top tuck spot. Once it's down, you then add a piece of ephemera by sliding it in from the bottom upwards, and that's how it gets held in place. I'm going to add a little bit of decoration, and again, can you see all the black on this bit? So I decided to just grab a scrap of craft paper, and this is why I keep a lot of my little scraps. When you're doing jobs like this and you just need to help tone down dark colours or bright colours, a simple little scrap can make all the difference. So I do keep a lot of them for a reason, and they actually get used. And then I have a cute little Aussie stamp that I had in my stash, and now I'm placing that down there, and you can actually see what's on it. Otherwise it just sort of disappeared into the background. Then the next thing we have is a very small rectangle folded in half, and I'm going to create a small hidden paper clip. Mine is going to go on the side of the page because of the direction of those flowers, but you can put them at the top if you like. That's a piece of baking paper, and then a piece of scrap paper that has been cut slightly smaller than the masterboard rectangle. You place that over the baking paper, then you add your paper clip, and you have to make sure that your paper clip is smaller than your exterior piece. That's why it's called a hidden paper clip. You don't want to be able to see it. Then you need to add some glue, and you need to try and go close to the edge. And that's the reason why I use the baking paper, because there is a very good chance that some glue will leak out from the sides. But if you don't go close to the edge, when you try and tuck your ephemera in, it may get caught on this scrap piece that's holding the paper clip. So you do need to try and get close to the edge and add a nice good dose around the paper clip, just so this ends up all nice and strong. And of course the baking paper stops the risk of you actually gluing your cover part together, because then it's not going to be much good to you, is it? So try and line it up so that it's nicely inside the frame of the outer piece, and press down really firmly, especially around that paper clip, so that it just all glues together really nicely. Then from my stash I found this very cute little mushroom. Again, a little small piece that may never have got used elsewhere. And because this actual piece had a plain piece of paper on it, I did not add that. It was actually part of the masterboard. I thought that little mushy will look perfect there, and you can actually see him nice and clearly. Remove the baking paper, and then we simply add this to our journal page. So you just slide it on. I'm just being very careful because it's just been freshly glued. If you leave it to dry for a minute, you'll be more than fine. And now you have a cute little tuck spot on both sides of your journal page. The next one is a semicircle. I had a coaster on my desk. I just traced around it, and then we have a semicircle, which makes a great side tuck. It's a little bit different to your traditional rectangles, and I want to add this little piece of trim. And for once, I'm actually going to use a different glue. This is Helmer's fabric glue. The reason why I'm using this, it does a superb job. It holds down fabric and trims so solidly, but it dries incredibly quickly. So when I'm doing videos, of course, that's very helpful because I can move on to the next stage without any problems. The Tiger Grip does a good job holding down trim, but you have more time if you're worried about placement, but you have to let it dry. So this is my favorite go-to fabric glue, especially when I'm doing videos. You just have to get it lined up nice and quickly. I'm trying to have this overhang a little bit. I don't mind if the edge of this trim sort of hangs over the edge of the page. And then we are going to just trim off the excess, making sure I don't use my paper scissors. I grab my fabric ones. And voila, we're going to add a tiny little bit more decoration to this one. I've got this cute little butterfly that has gold glitter on it, so I decided I wanted to use it, but you will notice that it gets lost on the white. So I'm grabbing my ink, my vintage photo, Distress Oxide, and I'm just going to gently ink the edges. Obviously, this is a very popular thing to do when you're creating vintage journals because it makes everything look a little bit old. In this case, that's not what I'm doing it for. I'm just simply doing it as a way to increase contrast. Doesn't have to be a lot, but you can see the difference that little bit of inking makes. So we're first going to add these leaves. And I'm holding the area where I don't want too much glue because I want this to hang over the edge a little bit. So that's where my thumb is to remind me. And we just place that down. Then we're going to add the little butterfly, and I've just decided to put it right up the top where that darker bit is, because that way you will really see it. Then grab your journal page where you want your side tuck to go. And we're doing exactly the same thing again. We are just going to apply a thin amount of glue down the edge, the bit that's going to the edge of your paper. And I'm going to glue it down as close as I can. I don't mind the little flowers hanging over the edge and creating a bit of a visual appeal when you look at the side of the journal. And voila, that is another piece of ephemera all done. Now the next one, I had this small rectangle and I just could not decide what to do. So I decided, with the help of a piece of scrap paper that I have folded in half, I'm going to create a double fold. What happens is, just like the hidden paper clip, except you don't put the paper clip inside, this will wrap around the side of a journal and provide two tuck spots. You just have the paper clip on the outside. So first I'm gluing down the left-hand side with this little scrap and trying to get it as close to the center as possible. Then we're adding glue down the other side. And I have this cute little journaling card that has some cherries on it, and one side has a little bit of glitter, so decided that has to be the upside. And again, just carefully trying to place it nice and close to the edge. Oh, and I found a tiny patch of glue. I hate those, so I have to get rid of that. Then I'm going to add this piece of ephemera, which sort of sticks well and truly out over the sides, but that's the whole idea. It's a great way to make practical use of a small piece of ephemera that you're making. And we're going to place that down as close as possible to the edge without overlapping, because I don't want it sticking out the side of the page, because it's only a light cardstock, so it would get damaged way too quickly. But if you had something more sturdy, it could also stick out the side. Then you grab the journal page where you want to attach it and you simply wrap it around the edge. Again, this also works very well for the top or the bottom of a page too. It just depends on the alignment of the print that's on your pieces. You can do whatever you like. Mine just happened to be on the side for these. And voila, you've got two tuck spots yet again. Very easy way to use up a scrap. And it looks very cute. Then the next bit, we are just going to have a very simple triangular pocket, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm adding ephemera and having it hang over the edges because I just think it looks a lot more interesting. Then the next little piece is a flower. It's a one-of single flower that somehow I have in my stash, and the colours work perfectly. So it's going down, and then of course I realise I've actually glued it upside down. Now, of course I had to pick it off, couldn't help myself. It wouldn't have mattered, nobody would have ever noticed, but I noticed these things. So thankfully, that's the joy of this glue. It does give you a little bit of time to change your mind if you make a mistake. And then I have this cute little birdie, again, tiny little bird that I probably would not use in a bigger journal. So this has been great for just using up little pieces that I have had floating around for a very long time. I think that was cut out of a magazine. Then you just grab the page you want it to go on, glue down the two sides that are going on the edges, and that's another pocket done. Very simple, but I think looks really attractive. a great addition to a very plain page, because that one is quite colourful. Okay, so now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. I've got these little rectangular pieces left, too small to really do anything with, but I've decided we're going to create another belly band, but this one will be horizontal instead of vertical. And to make it worthwhile, I'm just simply attaching this piece to a larger piece of cardstock. So if you have really pretty scraps and you want to use them, just back it onto something else and make it the size you need it to be. So this way now we will actually, and it's not that much bigger, but it does make a difference for the size of the pages I'm working on. So at least that can use, I was determined to use all these bits up. So I had to get a little bit imaginative there towards the end. And then I just have a couple of small leaf bits that I'm adding, because I sort of think those colour tones go well with this piece. Then all you have to do is grab a journal page, and this time we're just adding the glue down the small sides. As you can see, it's going on across the page. And of course, I'm being fussy about the exact placement, which is ridiculous and totally unnecessary. But it's how I roll, unfortunately. Sometimes perfectionism can get the better of you. Even though this is a junk journal. And now we're going to do the very last piece. Another little rectangle. But this one is definitely a bit longer than the other one. So I'm just going to round the corners on the one side. And we're going to create a tuck spot again, but we're going to put it on the left hand side. Sometimes adding, because it's you have to put hidden paper clips and things around the outer edges, sometimes it's a good idea to add some pieces that are, the bulk of it's in the center. It just helps create a journal that's a little bit more even looking. Now what I'm doing here is just trying to place my little dragonfly die cut down and work out where I need to add glue, and I'm using the measurements on my mat as a guide as to where to add glue, instead of taking a wild guess and having glue on bits that are hanging over the edge. That's a very easy way of doing that. Then you simply grab the journal page you want to attach it to, add some glue down the side where you have not rounded the corners, because that's going to be your inner edge. And stick it down. And that's another cute little piece. And it's the last one. Guess what? It's time for a flip and fill session. Everything's done inside now. I've done some extra things on pages just to give you a few ideas, and I have lots of things to fill in all the pockets and fun things that we've made. So I did add this little bee to the front here, but otherwise I have left that exactly the same. Now, of course, we have our first pocket at the front here, and I've got a really pretty tag that I found in my stash that has some cactuses in it. So let's pop that in the first one. Then this is bug paper from a Flow magazine. There was also a page of white stuff from the same Flow magazine, so I just cut out a little bits just for a little bit of something on this page. And I found this cute sticker. I liked the colour around the edge. It sort of matched the colour of the bugs there, and a little bit of black leaves. And you could write your name or whatever you like, or maybe the date you started using the journal, whatever you like. I thought that was a very simple way to decorate the front page. I've left this page. It's a good writing spot, and there's a cute little ladybug there, so let's just leave that page alone. Here's our first one, the belly band, and instead of putting a normal tag or anything behind it, I've got a very pretty pink die-cut heart here. There's no reason why you can't use any shape you like for a journaling card, and I thought the little pink heart looked quite cute in the background there, and it picks up some of the pink that's down here in the belly band. Again, very simple. This one here, I just had some lined paper in my stash. I've just glued a piece down so that you can actually write on there, and then added this pretty floral cutout. This was from a kit I got somewhere, sometime. I honestly can't remember, but I just fussy cut that out and popped that on there. I've included this very cute sticker. This is a pack I got, I think, from Temu, and I just decided to leave that page like that. Not every page has to have a place to write. There's no reason why you can't just have some decorative pages in there. And if you wanted to add more journaling space, you could get some journaling cards and write on them, and then just use paper clips to clip them in if you want. Here is our top tuck, so we need something for that. And I was determined to use this very pretty journaling card, but it sort of didn't quite fit anywhere lengthwise, so I thought, you know what, there is no reason why that can't go in on the side. And I love the colours in that. I think it's a great match for that. Then this page here, I just used a stencil and some Distress Oxide. So for example, this one I did with brushed corduroy and cracked pistachio, and one of these little makeup brushes. I buy them in bulk packs off Temu. They are fabulous for using with stencils, and I've just created a bit of a tree for this gorgeous little fox. Found that in my stash. Have no idea where I would ever use a fox any other time, so I thought he can be in a nature journal, so he now has a nice home. Again here, now some of this colour, because this is just a piece of coloured copy paper, did come through. So I first put down some book page and then just a different piece of lined paper, so you've got a bit of a journaling spot. And this is a tiny little stamp that I did on the same green style paper that we have used in this journal. So tried to use elements that I've used, like to make pages and things, and pop them in other spots. So little bit of cohesiveness happening. Now, this looks like I've just put a little decorative piece on this page, but if you flip this open and then flip this down, you have a journaling spot. So a great way, an easy way to add hidden journaling. You just fold the page up, then you fold the page over, and you glue down just that back bit, and then put your decoration on the top bit, and you've got yourself a very cute little hidden journaling spot. Oh, this one, I was trying this one on for size. Now, all I did here, these 3 pumpkins, they are cardstock, they're ephemera. I think I got given them in a swap at some stage. I only glued along the bottom, and that makes a tuck spot. And I was just making sure this would fit, and I left it in there. So there you go. That's a cute little piece. I don't know where that came from, but it fits in there beautifully, and use up some of your ephemera that you just might not use elsewhere. Works well as a little tuck spot. Then I have a collection of stamps that are great for adding writing spaces to journaling. I decided just to leave this page, and I just stamped on those lines, so you could certainly journal on that if you wanted to. And this here, because this is so bright, I've basically just used it as a frame, and the pink / coffee dyed paper, just put a piece down there somewhere to journal. Then we have our horizontal tuck spot, and I have this cute little bit. I quite like the fact that it had the sort of similar colours to what's happening here. And the imagery is just down the bottom. So if we put that in this little tuck spot here, you actually get to see it. If you put it into a pocket, then all you'd see is this boring wood bit. So I thought that was a perfect choice for there. Now, I love using magazines if you've been around here for any length of time. But do you know that how often you get decorative bits in magazines that run right up to the edge of the page, so you don't get the full thing? That was the case with this fruit, and I had this idea that I wanted this opposite this fruit. So what I did, I glued these bits down onto a piece of cardstock, and then I just fussy cut out around the edges, and now I have myself a fabulous little tuck spot just using little bits and pieces from a magazine. And then I just made this little journaling card. This was a scrap that I had collected when I decided to do this journal, and I had this little lemon piece. I don't know where it's from, but I thought, look, we're in fruit mode. How about we just stick with it? So that's a great way to make a tuck spot. Use up magazine, bits down the side. Perfect. Just left this the way it was. Yes, I could have stuck another piece on it, but I've kept a few pages blank because I sort of thought this is a great little mini journal, pardon me, that you can experiment with, because it's only a small piece of real estate. It's not so scary. It's not like a great big page. So I've kept a few in case I want to experiment or try some other form of decorating a page. So you'll see there's a few here that are like that. Now with this one here, this center spread, I found this in a magazine. Oh, I need to glue that bit down. He didn't get glued properly. And I just loved that. And it picks up the same colors that are on the background. So again, I just cut out some paper, lined paper, glued some on so we have some journaling space. And I got to use this beautiful bird. But of course, he's flown over on using part of that page. That's fine. And I will glue that down. So that's good. Then here, this is another little scrap. I've just cut it into a corner tuck pocket, and I got a punch and punched out 3 floral shapes so you can see some of the colour through there. And I just thought we'd go with a very basic journaling card in a plain colour, because I truly think there's enough going on, and we'll keep it over to the right a bit so you can sort of still see the background colour through there. Then this was the last piece, the little tuck spot that we made. Pardon me, frog in the throat. And I've got these 2 little journaling cards, but I thought they would add a nice pop of colour tucked in there. No reason why you can't use 2. Don't just have to use 1. And then I just popped another one of those stamps with the lines on this page. And it did the same thing, used my brush and a stencil, but this time I used Victorian velvet to do those 3 flowers, just for a little bit of interest. Then on this, now, these white things here, they are actually tear apart like memo notes from Flow magazine. So I thought a white one with the little bit of black print is perfect on top of all this colour. And then I just stamped a cute little bee on there. Left that one plain too for the moment. And then this, again, kept it very simple. That's just 2 more from the Flow magazine. They make perfect little journaling spots. Then this next one here, this is just a little offcut from a piece of scrapbooking paper I had. And I thought this print looked very similar to that print. So I just fussy cut out roughly around the edges, just glued it down there. And I've made a little corner tuck spot. And I've just got this very simple little journal card to go in there. Tiny little bit of ribbon that pokes out the top. Then this one here, I just grabbed some stencil paste and a spatula and put my stencil down and then just fed that over the top. Of course, the stencil slid right at the end when I was pulling the stencil off, but I've just ignored that bit. It's okay. And then I just experimented with a little bit of watercolour. And just used it to highlight the flowers. I didn't sort of know how it would work, but I think it actually turned out quite cute, and that's a pretty way to decorate a page. As I said, not every page needs to have writing spots. Some can just be for the sake of pretty. Now, here's our corner tuck pocket, and what I've done here, this is a little die cut piece I've made, and then these two little tabs, they are actually from a tiny little piece of scrap that I had left of the masterboard. So I've just popped that on there and made like a little pull out for it, and I thought that was a perfect match for this pocket because, you know, we've got all the colours working together beautifully. So very happy with that. Then this here, this is from a Daphne's Diary. It's half of a butterfly's wing, and it just turns out it was the perfect size for a little tuck spot. And then what I did, I grabbed another bit of Daphne's Diary. This was a scrap. This was all scraggly. I just trimmed it down to how I could make the first decent rectangle. And I just made a little mini notebook with some striped paper, very simple. Also a tiny bit of stenciling down the side there just to sort of break up those words. And we're just going to tuck that cute little notebook in there. I've left this one. This one I've just added some craft coloured paper that I have in my stash and some cute little carrots that I fussy cut out. This one here, again, just some line paper. And don't ever rule out keeping colouring books and using them as fussy cuts. This flower, like I could paint that too if I wanted to, or colour it with pencil, but I actually find them quite smart in the good old monochrome black and white. So pop that on there. Then this one, I just used my 2 flower punches and some scrap pieces of paper just to add a little bit of something down the side of this page. I left that one blank. This is a piece of washi sticker and a little cutout that I had in my stash. I've left this piece. This one here, again, more striped paper so that we have somewhere to write. And then I found this very cute washi sticker with the beautiful red roses. I thought that went well because of the flower colour sticking out the back there. Then here, this is our double-sided tuck, and I have this cute piece to pop in, and we just gently nudge that in. That's being held in place by that paper clip there. And I don't know, I've got a thing here. We could stick that in the back. I don't know if this really needs anything tucked in. Probably would be a great space if you wanted to do some hidden journaling. Have a journal card that's a little bit smaller than the piece I used, for example, and then nobody would need to know it's even tucked in the side. I left this and this because I loved these pages so much. I didn't want to put anything on them, so guess what? I did not. Then I wanted something very simple for my index card, so I got a whale tail tab, and I cut it in half and glued it with the tail bit poking out. I know they're designed, you know, so that the whale tail bit's in here and then you fold it over, but I love them like this. So I just glued those down, let that dry, and then I got my pokey tool and I poked a hole, and I've added a bulb pin with a nice little delicate silver flower charm I had in my stash. And I'm leaving this page the same. That's enough deco for that. Here, another one of those stamps. This is a great stamp set, this one. And just a few fussy cut flowers. This was actually a piece of gift paper in a Frankie magazine. Some Australian natives they're meant to be, so I thought that looked good. Then we have another top tuck pocket. This is, again, this piece of scrap I had in this exact shape. I didn't have to do anything except glue it down. And then I found this cute little birdie and I decided he needed to live there. So what I've done here, I've got this simple black and white image, which, you know, we've got the black and white here, and that just doesn't fight. It helps tone down, you know, that super brightness in the back there. This page here is just a little sticker thing I had in my stash, and I've added a tiny little flower to that, glued that down, left that blank as well. Then we have our circular tuck spot, and let's see if this fits in here. Yes, there we go. I knew I'd measured it for somewhere, but I couldn't remember where. So that's a nice little journaling card. Then this is another, this is the same idea as the center spread in the first signature. I just glued down some of the green coffee splattered paper, and then I put this beautiful bird on who also snuck over the page. I love that look, and I got to use these birdies. Left that one there. Then this was another one. Oh, I didn't take this out. I was experimenting. This is another piece from a Flow magazine, all from the same one. These two belong together. And then this is, I found this in my stash, and I thought that looked great. It lifted up all these plain things. So we're going to leave that one there. This here is just, I think it's cracked pistachio again, with a brush and a stencil. And when you're doing leaves, if you make it darker in the center and then ease off when you do the outside, you end up with tonal leaves, which I love. I think that one's so pretty. Another Flow magazine piece here that I've glued down. This time I added a cute beetle. Left this piece alone. Then this is the other side of the index card, and I'd found this in my stash, and I was determined to put it somewhere in this journal because it is just so cute. A teapot filling a cup for a bird to come and drink. I just had to put it in here, and I decided that was the perfect spot for it, and I've left that one alone too. And here is our hidden paper clip. So I decided, let's have a look. What have I got here? Oops-a-daisy. I found this cute giraffe. I thought he could sit just there, and then you can sort of see him and you can see the G, so I thought that was very cool. And then on the other side, I've just got this very simple, also from Flow magazine. See, this is why Flow magazines are wonderful. You look at them and you think, oh, what am I going to do with all these pages? But then you do a little project like this, and all these little bits get some use. So that's a great one there. This has this little bit of deco left on there. I'm just going to leave this one be, as well as that. And then finally, I've done a double pocket at the back here. Oh no, sorry, one more pocket to go. This was a paint chip from the hardware shop run through your die cut machine with an embossing folder. Honestly, paint chips make the most beautiful pockets, and I love then having a print and then a plain. I find that works really well. And so I have got a few little bits here. I've got this little one. This is just a die cut from a magazine. I'm popping that in there. And then I've got 3 little tickets here. I thought they might work well in there. Just a little bit of layering. Then I have left the last 2 bits. And finally, we have this cute little, this is a piece of pumpkin paper, which I'm sure I will never use. So I decided we'll make a little pocket with that, and then add that little bit of ephemera I found in my stash. And then, of course, that was the sort of closest thing I had to orange. So I've decided to put that in there. So that is my very cute little journal, all filled. And it's not as fat as what I thought it would be. But just a couple of other little things we're going to do. Now, we have these strands here. I've decided I don't want 4 dangles. This is only a small journal, so we don't want to overload it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one off and just keep one of each. And then I'm going to trim this as well. Let's just turn this way for a minute. And I don't want it to hang down too far. I'm thinking maybe relax it. Yeah, I think about there would be good. And we're going to do the same then with this one. Where is it? Here we go. So we're just going to keep one of these tails and then just gently pull this. I don't want them, they don't have to be exactly the same length, but relatively similar would be nice. Right, now I had a tiny little square of my masterboard left, so I cut another 2 rounds. I've just got to try and pick this one up. There we go. And I stuck a little pearl on each, and now we're going to use these to create our own homemade dangle. So it'll be very lightweight, and all you have to do is grab one of these and some glue. And we want to just sit that on there. And then we grab the other one and we put a little bit of glue around the outside. Well, this is interesting to do this with one hand. It would have been much better if I had 2 available, but it's okay. And then we're going to grab this and we're going to sit this on top. A little bit of glue sticking out there, that's fine. So just going to press this all around, and as long as you've used plenty of glue, it's going to sit there perfectly. So that's number 1. Then I thought, okay, what am I going to do with number 2? Didn't have any masterboard left, but I found 2 scraps, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing, except, oh, look, they probably will twist and turn once they're left to dangle, so it doesn't matter. But just for fun, I'm going to put this one, the green one, down first, even though I'm pretty sure that, you know, once they're released, they will sit whichever way they like, but that's okay. So we're going to, let me just, because this one's a little bit fiddly, let me just do this and hang on to it. To do the same thing, bringing that in, laying it down, and I'm just working on a little piece of baking paper here in case I have glue dripping everywhere, which of course is possible when you're working with such fiddly little things. And then we're just going to place this on top. Whoops-a-daisy, and try not to do that. Thankfully, this glue gives you a little bit of time to adjust, which will be just enough to swing that back to where it belongs. And then press all this down nice and firmly. And it's not perfect, but it is close enough. There we go. And you've made your own little dangles. How simple is that? So there we go. We've got 2 dangles. So that bit's done. Then lucky last. Now, unfortunately, I meant to record the making of this, but it didn't happen. I've made a tie. So I only had this small brad. Okay, so I'm thinking how, I can't use anything too thick. So I grabbed some of this cord, which I thought was a little bit ugly, even though it wouldn't have looked too bad. But I decided to paint it with some gold acrylic paint. I just sat it down on a large piece of scrap plastic and smothered it with gold paint. And I do like the way that looks. Then I tied a double knot because these very light but large wooden beads wouldn't just sit on one knot. So I did a double, and then I put a bit of glue on the knot, and now this has glued down beautifully. So otherwise I would have needed a triple knot, and that was going to look really ugly. So how this is going to work, we are going to feed that through there, and I want this to dangle, but I don't want the bead to be lower than the actual bottom of the journal. And then we're going to hold on to that and we're going to feed this around. And then when we get back, we're going back down underneath and voila. And then this is tight enough that it's going to hold it in place. It looks really cute. I think these are very appropriate for a nature journal. And we're all done. Oh no, one more little thing. I forgot to put this inside. This doesn't have to go in a pocket. I got a leaf from outside and I ran it through my laminator. Then I cut around, but left a bit at the top, put a tiny hole and a bit of ribbon. And I made myself a bit of a leaf bookmark. We can just sort of, that can just go in there anywhere. It doesn't really matter. But I thought that was a very cute little addition to the journal. So there we go. It's all done. And we've just used a masterboard and lots of scraps. And this is a fun little way, especially if you're new to junk journaling. This is not so daunting. Any of these little bits you can do yourself, honestly, but when you put it all together, I think it looks pretty fabulous. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments box below. I would also love to hear which bit's your favorite. Out of all the little things I've shown you, which one do you definitely want to add to a journal? I would love to hear it. And thank you very much for watching. Until next time. Stay safe and stay healthy. And if you can give this video a thumbs up, I would be very, very happy. Thank you. Bye for now.